Well, I guess the first order of business is welcoming everyone and calling us all to order. Um, and so, thank you for coming. I'm very appreciative. I honestly can't see who's there, but we were discussing, Casey and I, taking a little bit of a brief, taking roll, I suppose you might say. So, who has managed to join us, if I could inquire?
Okay, so if the members will please respond by saying present. Chairman Mike Hammond previously made notice of his absence. Vice Chair Judge Cerny.
I'm here.
General Sharm Allen. Counsel Jonathan Cooper.
Present.
Defender Eric Lutton.
Present.
Judge Stephen Sword.
Here.
5 members present, and we have a quorum.
All righty. I think that Casey had kind of planned for a pledge to the flag. Do we have a flag there?
We do.
Do y'all want to pledge allegiance to our flag? Y'all remember
Would
that?
everyone please rise, face our nation's flag, and offer the proper salute?
All righty. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, guys. Those are some grand and lofty words. Let's hope that we actually make that happen. I think that we need to get to the point where we have our mental health court bylaws reviewed and approved. Are we at the stage where that is something we could contemplate?
I think we need to review one thing that I'd like to address. I've mentioned this before. Again, it's not necessarily a hill I wanted to die on. It's just such odd language on the last page under Article 4 about amendments, and it may be somewhere else in here as well too. I'm not sure, but Section 3 says these bylaws and any amendment thereto shall be subject to approval of the Knox County Law Department before becoming effective. And that's just odd language to me to say that it's subject to approval by them, because nobody from the county law director's office is on this board. Nobody on this board has the authority to unilaterally approve or disapprove an amendment. So we're giving power to an agency that's not even on this board that we don't have. And so I certainly would want the law director's office to review anything that we do beforehand. But I would propose that we amend that to say these bylaws in the amendment thereto shall be submitted for review by the Knox County Law Department. And I know the Knox County Law Department is the one that put that language in there. And maybe we can ask them, why do you do that? Do you put that in any other government agency or board that does that? I just don't think they have that authority. I think that's the only suggestion I have. Otherwise, I think they're good.
If that's a motion, I would second that.
I would like to make that a formal motion.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Count me as an aye as well. All opposed? It looks like that amendment and the motion to make that amendment has carried. Do I understand correctly?
Yes.
All righty. Subject to that amendment, is there a motion that we otherwise approve the bylaws?
I've actually got a couple of other points to make, Judge Cerny, not in the way of a motion, but just wanted to raise it to the attention of the board.
Excellent.
Comment, if that's okay. On page 1 under section 2, it says the advisory board shall do all of the following, and then list 7 items under that. Do we want to make that language a little more lenient so that we're not requiring ourselves to do mandatorily do all 7 of these things?
Refresh my recollection of what the 7 are, if you please.
Well, this is pretty long. So the bullet points are review and evaluate the community's mental health needs. Number 2, review any annual county mental health court services performance contract. Number 3, advise the mental health court coordinator as to any aspect of the mental health court program. So that's more of an advisory role there. Review and approve the procedures used to ensure citizen and professional involvement at all stages of the planning process. Submit an annual report to the public on the needs and performance of the health court. Number 6, sponsor and or endorse prevention intervention events and activities in the community. And number 7, assess the impact of the alignment of the services from the state to the county. So all those I think are very valuable and important duties of the board, but I just wonder if we want to indicate that we have to do every one of those things. And maybe there's not really a time limit, so maybe it's okay if we just leave it open-ended. Again, this is not, I'm not making a motion, I'm just raising this as a question.
In the event that we obligate ourselves by saying shall and we fail somehow, what would be the repercussions, I suppose? I think you make a very good point. Maybe it should be couched in terms of a motion. Maybe we should amend that language somewhat.
I was kind of going through these as Jonathan was reading them, and there's some that I think it's not unwise to have bylaws telling us we need to do these, but then there's others that I feel like Jonathan would agree that we maybe don't need to put that in a bylaw to bind ourselves to that. For instance, number 1, review and evaluate the community's mental health needs, services, facilities, and special problems. May include site visits and other things. And so that's one that I think that's a good thing to do, but do we want to have that as a shall? And then there's others like review and approve the procedures used to ensure citizen and professional involvement at all stages of the planning process. We've kind of already done that. Submit an annual report. I mean, that's probably a worthy thing to do. And the last 2 are maybe ones that are good to do, but not necessarily warranted or shall. So I almost wonder if we shouldn't have 2 categories. Some that are that we shall do, and others that are recommendations, more like, and we can come up with whatever language we want, but just saying that it's the advisory board should also consider to do these matters. That's maybe one solution to that.
Yeah, I should have probably come up with some alternative language, but I did not, and I'm struggling to come up with a clean and easy way to edit this. So
You still have Lutton right there in the room. He's probably got something to say about it.
Put me on the spot, Judge. I don't have anything at the moment.
Of those 7 things, Judge Sword, which ones would you say should be in the shall category, and which one should be it is recommended that the board does this or that?
3, 4, and 5, I think, would fit under the shall, and maybe 2, and then 1, 6, and 7, and maybe 2 as more, and may also do, or whatever language we come up with. Should also consider.
what about something like the duties of the advisory board may include, but are not limited to, the following?
Well, then you're still making it a duty.
I really like that, Jonathan, but I don't know necessarily that if we put it as may include, then I don't think that we get the shalls that Judge Sword wants, because, and I'm not necessarily saying that may include is, I don't know. I do like that. Would you apply it to only, 1, 6, and 7, and maybe 2? If we're going to get this done this afternoon, I think the may include but not be limited to language could get that done. I anticipate that the board will do all these things that we should be doing, but that's what bylaws are for, to make the things that are mandatory, and those things that are optional, or aspirational in character should be kind of spelled out, I guess.
Maybe we could do something, a combination where we just move 3, 4, and 5 under the sentence, the advisory board shall do all the following, and then add another sentencing, the advisory board. What was your language?
The duties of the advisory board.
Additional duties of the advisory board may include but are not limited
To
to,
the
and then do 1, 2, 6, and 7.
That sounds good.
So my proposed amendment, I guess I'm joining Mr. Cooper in this amendment, is that Section 2 be amended to reflect the advisory board shall do all of the following. And then numbers 3, 4, and 5 in the current proposed amendments be renumbered to 1, 2, and 3, followed by the sentence, the duties of the advisory board may also include but are not limited to, and then numbers 1, 2, 6, and 7 to be renumbered 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Or 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We just recount. Do you join in that?
I second that motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Count me as an aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
So I don't really want to take up a lot of time on this, but just throwing out there under Section 3 membership, there's not anything that, or maybe it does, and I just didn't read it very carefully, mention other representative stakeholders who routinely sit on these meetings, such as deputy assistant attorney, deputy attorney general, and deputy court clerks. Do we want to at least reference their participation, even if they're maybe not voting members?
And I guess if I may, I have some other questions that sort of along those lines under membership that I'm wondering if we're doing what we're intending to do. It lays out that the members of the advisory board shall be appointed and approved by the Knox County Court criminal judges, which makes sense to me in some ways, but when it comes down to who the board members should be from my office, and I would suspect, I've not spoken to the general, but who the advisory board member should be from the DA's office, that I would suspect that in our own respective offices that we'd probably want some say in that. And 2, under Section 9, where it lays out that a maximum of 3-year term with no one being able to serve more than 2 consecutive terms, with it sort of laying out that we're dealing with elected officials a lot of times on this board. I'm wondering if we shouldn't, this is similar to language that I recall seeing in like Metro Drug Coalition, where you don't want to have the same board members all the time. That said, when we're dealing with individuals with 8-year terms, I wonder if it makes sense to be kicking myself or the DA off of the board midstream. So I would advocate a potential change in that, maybe some permanent advisory board members if you're the elected DA or the elected PD or the elected clerk.
Or an elected judge.
Yeah, or an elected judge. I mean, I figure they have the authority to put who they want on under the language that's already there, though. But
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't mind giving up that power that I don't want, that says it's appointed and approved by the Knox County Criminal Court judges. I would maybe suggest some language about the elected official, or if the elected official wished to substitute somebody else for their role, then everybody on the board has to approve that. Like if you wanted to step out and you're automatically got a seat. But if you want somebody else from your office to say you just want Jessica to be on there, then I think everybody else on the board maybe should say, are we okay with Jessica taking Eric's spot? And if no, then you either have to find somebody else. What do y'all think about that?
That seems agreeable to me. Would just be majority vote of the board.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that, or
take
would
it
that be
out-
with
take it
judicial
out of
approval?
us, yeah.
I'm fine with either.
Would we call that a motion?
I'll call that a motion.
Yeah, so let me come up with some language for us. So, membership of the advisory board shall be 6 in number and shall include one advisory board member. Well, it says represent. I think we should just say one of the Knox County Criminal Court judges, right? Like, we don't want Jennifer Judy, who I love, take my spot in that. I mean, Hector, great. Judge Green, great. But let's just say, actually, one advisory member shall be a Knox County Criminal Court judge. One advisory member shall be a General Sessions Court Criminal Division judge. One advisor shall be the district attorney or a designee of the DA, subject to approval by a majority of the sitting board. Y'all go with that?
Yeah.
And then the same thing would be for the PD's office. And what about, Jonathan, what do you think about the private defense bar?
I think that can go too.
Okay, so just leave that the way it is.
But what
And
about
then-
court clerk?
Yeah, should we make Mr. Hammond do it? And if he wants to designate somebody, we have to prove it just the same way? Okay. So PD, the DA, and the clerk may substitute somebody else, subject to approval by a majority of the sitting.
And if I could ask, how do we anticipate? I mean, I know that we have Mr. Cooper on the board right now, but obviously at some point that will likely end. What would the mechanism be for who would be the private bar representative once Mr. Cooper is no longer on the board?
Well, that's there's a couple of places we're going to get to that. I think in no, sorry. I think that would be appointed. Membership would be appointed by the criminal court judges.
Yeah, again,
I
don't-
can't
don't
remember
know.
where
I
that
don't
came
know.
in.
I remember when we talked on earlier, I mean, the statute really gives a lot of authority to certain. That's why, that's where that language.
However we say it.
This actually sounds like a joint motion of Judge Sword and Mr. Lutton.
Well, I'm not sure that we still have the defense. What were you saying?
I was saying that if the board has the authority to approve or disapprove of
You guys are kind of dropping out from my perspective a little bit. I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, maybe so maybe the solution is that we change the language in that introductory sentence under section 3 and so the approval is not by the judges but by a majority vote of the board.
I'm okay with that as long as we're not including elected officials. Like, I don't think the board should be able to say, we don't want Eric Lutton on here. He's the elected PD. He gets to be here. Sharm gets to be here unless she designates somebody else. And the 3 criminal court judges can decide who's going to do it between the 3 of us. I just think as elected officials, they need to have a seat and without being subject to anybody else. And I kind of understand where you're coming from. The defense bar should have that as well too. The private defense bar.
I don't want it.
So
I just think it's tricky because there's not a mechanism that exists for them to nominate their
right,
person, so to speak.
yes. Because there's so many people beating down the door for this job.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone else stepped back and Mr. Cooper was left standing. And I don't know what the mechanism will be next time.
Yeah. I mean, we could, I guess, if we had a vacancy, if Jonathan was done, we could, or when he's done, we could ask KBA to submit it for volunteers, and then we can, the board can decide. It should be by majority vote.
I'm perfectly agreeable to that. I just feel like we should have something in there because if we're gonna run into a situation where we have not anticipated a future need.
I think probably what would happen is Jonathan would go to one of his colleagues and say, "Hey, listen, I need to give this up. Would you be interested in doing it?" And he'd come to us and say, "Hey, are y'all okay? If whoever takes it, and yeah, we're good. All right, welcome." I think that's probably the practical way it's going to happen.
Yeah, and so I don't think we have to be that detailed in this. If it's still appointed and approved by the criminal court judges, how it gets to how that name gets to them for approval and
I see what you're saying.
and appointment, then we don't need to be that specific in the bylaws, do we?
I think so. No.
Well, if it's gonna work that way for the approval of the criminal court judges, then I would go back and say that mine and Eric's selection of who we send, that language
Subject to us
saying
to-
it would be, right, just subject to the criminal court judges, not subject to the rest of the advisory board vote.
So just
And
leave
it needs
it.
to be the same, I guess is what I'm
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to say, across the board for defense bar, Eric, and myself. I think however we do it, it just needs to be the same.
Yeah, I mean, the way I kind of see the way it's worded right now is we're sort of like the problem solvers. Like if whoever Sharm and Eric and Jonathan and the defense bar puts forward, we're probably all going to be fine with. But if there's a dispute, then it comes to me, Judge Green, and Judge Sanchez, and then we decide. Is that everybody okay with that? So everything we've said for the last 15 minutes, just disregard. We'll keep it section 3 the way it is. All right.
Under paragraph 10 on section 3, the last sentence, it says partial terms less than 3 years shall not be counted for term limitation purposes. And I think that's typical for most bylaws that I've seen and most boards that I've served on, to have this partial term. But I would change that 3 to either 2 or 1. Otherwise, somebody could serve on this for 9 years almost. But on the other hand, if this is all done by, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Maybe because 3 out of the 4 main positions are elected, it doesn't really matter. I'm just saying it's a long time for somebody to serve on the board. It could potentially be a very long time.
I'm not ready to conclude that long period is a negative.
And if I may, so if we have gone back, sort of struck the 15 minutes that we had done previously, Judge Sword, do we not then need to go back to paragraph 9 and maybe change the language that no member shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms? Should it not read something to the effect of no non-elected official member shall serve? Because obviously, if we're keeping the electeds,
Oh, yeah, that's what you're saying.
yeah, because otherwise we're going to get term limited off.
So what if we just said no member shall serve more than 2 full consecutive terms, with the exception of elected officials?
I would be agreeable. I would make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I voted aye. I didn't say it out loud, but in my head.
We knew it.
I read your thoughts. All right, ayes have it. Keeping up with these changes, Ms. Casey?
Feverishly. Yes, I am. Thank you.
All righty.
Last thing, and I promise I will. Well, okay, 2 more things. One on under section 4, paragraphs 1 and 4 under section 4 seems to be a little inconsistent. in that the officers are appointed by the criminal court judges, but in paragraph 4, if either one resigns, then there is an election by the board members. Maybe that's how it's meant to be, but it seemed a little inconsistent. I can see how they're originally appointed, but their replacements are elected, but maybe we want to keep that language consistent.
Yeah, that makes sense. We could just change paragraph to 4 to say any vacancies of a board office shall be appointed by the Knox County Criminal Court judge.
I guess we need a motion.
I'll move that we amend section 4 to say vacancies of any office of the board shall be filled by appointment of the Knox County Criminal Court judges.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Count me as an aye as well. Opposed? Ayes have it, looks like. What else you got?
That's it, and I would move to approve the bylaws as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We're doing pretty good today with Greenland, I guess. All righty then. So we got bylaws approved. That was one of the major things we wanted to do with this agenda. Another thing that we were hoping to accomplish was to talk about an operations timeline, which basically, if I understand correctly, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong about this, but just to give an update, we're getting close to the point where we're ready to be online with participants. We have applications. In fact, there's one participant that I think has been is represented by George Pettigrew, and I think that Mr. Lee indicated DA's office approval. And of course, the client and Mr. Pettigrew are in agreement that they would like this participant to get started. And so I think that Mary O'Neill is going to do an assessment in accordance with our admissions procedures. So we might have a participant as early as next week, I guess. Casey, correct me if any of this is wrong.
Sorry, Judge, I don't recall that. It might have been with Justin. I don't know if Mary knows anything about that.
I'm sorry, say it again, Sam.
I don't recall talking with Mr. Pettigrew about any mental health court case yet.
I could have received erroneous information, but we were under the impression that you guys had approved this person. I can't remember who this person's name is.
That's okay. The attorney actually was David Poss.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's the same individual that you have already.
I've discussed that with the general today, so we're working on that right now. She hasn't signed off on the referral yet, and we're trying to hone the referral and the order process right now. So we're almost there, but not yet, Judge.
So, but still, we're talking about a fairly close time frame. So we're getting to the point where we're going to have to, agree on a time for staffing and dockets and all that stuff, and we're going to be working with participants fairly soon, which to me is encouraging. I think that there's a need out there, and there are people suffering, and I think that we've worked very hard to get to the point where we're ready to get started, and I'm proud of all the hard work that's gone on. You guys have done a wonderful job as individual, representatives of the various stakeholders, and I'm very proud of what Casey's done and Mary O'Neill. And so I'm looking forward to being able to help folks within the next few weeks.
So the bottom line, Judge, is I've got a couple people that I've just been kicking down the road. When can I start approving orders for referrals? Or do we know that yet?
I don't suppose that you guys would like me to just pull a date out of the air. But I'm thinking that it could be last week of August, first couple of weeks of September, if that's something this board could approve.
I don't know that we're that close.
Does the board need to approve the opening of court, so to speak? Is that what you're asking for, Judge Cerny?
I guess if not a formal action of the board, I'd like to hear, from Sharm and Sam if they think they're ready, and of course, from you, Jonathan and Eric, you guys think we're ready to have people referred to us or ready to go. One thing I will say that Eric and I and Justin Pruitt and I have talked about the participant handbook, and that occurred earlier today. And we're gonna do a little perking that up. We've got some concerns about those, and Eric and Justin have made some very good points about having the participant handbook. We accessed the participant handbook of some other jurisdictions and emulated those things. I don't want to use the word plagiarize, but after doing that, it seemed as if there were some things that Eric wanted to improve a little bit, and Justin was in agreement. When we talked about it, they made very valid points that I also agree with. I think that can happen pretty quickly. Do we start working with participants in the absence of a final draft of the participant handbook? I don't necessarily have opposition to that, as long as the participant handbook is finalized within a really brief period of time, soon relative to today's date. But all those things having been said, if all these things come together, I think we could be taking participants here in the next few weeks. Y'all tell me how you feel about that.
Mary, what do
Are
you
we
think about
ready?
that? Is that realistic? Okay. Well, I know I got a couple right now in mind. I'd tell you their names. It's not that I want to protect their confidentiality. I just can't remember them. But I mean, I've got a couple that every time they come into court, I think, oh, this person needs mental health court.
I think from the DA's perspective, we're ready as soon as the orders, the forms and the orders are complete. And understand we had conversations today
Yeah, and that's already been updated. Judge approved it and
Okay.
already updated it. So
on all three.
the referral form stood
Mhm.
as approved, and we did make an update to the KCSE participation to add the,
Then we're ready from our document standpoint, yes.
Do we just want to pick the September 1st date because it's a nice round number and it makes it easier for accounting?
Just so you'll know, we have a referral form in our office, and we have approved that referral form. It's the only thing that's holding that up was actually the documents and where the signatures went on the referral form versus the judgments. And if we've had those conversations and signature lines have been put on the orders, then we are ready to go today. I mean, we have signed the form we've signed, I think, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but the form that we have signed and the form that the defense bar has put before us it's ready now for Mary, right?
Yes.
And so, I mean, Mary could do that assessment. I don't know when. When can you do the assessment? So she can do the assessment on the first of the week. And then if the assessment all goes well, then we do the order. So, I mean, we're that far along with our first applicant.
That sounds pretty exciting to me.
And Judge, so just to confirm with this audience, we'll be doing our first staffing. We'll be doing staffings on Thursdays at 1:30 with our docket to follow immediately after. However, Judge had requested that we move this Thursday, or this coming up Thursdays to 1 p.m. Just want to put that on everyone's radar. And I'll send out a Microsoft Outlook invite for that. So.
You're referring to August 24, right?
Yes, sir.
Well,
And
I'm sorry, Judge Cerny. I was just going to suggest, should we just go ahead and declare it officially open, and then we'll just know we need to slow walk it at the beginning till we get up and running?
That's a great suggestion. We have drafted something that is waiting for approval to put out to the legal community, to have the KBA put in their weekly newsletter that just mentions that. It's very simple. It's one paragraph, and I'd love to share that with you guys and get your feedback. You guys are okay with that? Judge has it, and I know he was reviewing it, and it may just be a great way to like open it up and let the legal community know that that's where we're at. So, because we're certainly getting plenty of referrals from the detention center and also recovery court. We've had some referrals there as well, and I'm sure the judges and different people can refer to. But if we let the legal community know, that may open it up. We may get some more coming our way.
Should we maybe wait until a couple weeks to put that out there? Because you're going to get slammed as soon as we get it. And maybe it'd be good to sort of walk these first two, and the couple that I've got in mind, I can kind of tell the lawyers offline, say, hey, listen, we're processing these now. Why don't you go ahead and submit your application? We'll send it in. And that gives us a couple weeks before every attorney comes in there and starts asking for a referral.
That's a
yeah, in that way, it's kind of like opening up a new pizza place. We'll have a soft opening and then a grand opening.
That's a great recommendation. Yeah.
So do we need a motion to say that we're officially opening the
We had in our agenda that we had planned that it was supposed to sort of be couched in terms of me giving you guys a kind of a report as to where we are. But in a very real sense, I want to make sure that, I don't go all rogue on you and just say, yeah, Chuck wants to start August 31, Thursday or something like that. So, but it sounds as if we're all in agreement that we're pretty close to being online with actual referrals, participants, and the whole shooting match. Is that correct?
in the analogy you used, in a soft opening, that is correct. So we're not up and running at this point, but we're up and walking. We're not crawling anymore.
It sounds good.
Do I need?
And you do make a good point. Is something like this going to require a motion for the sake of our minutes and for the board and all that?
I really think, didn't we have like a charter instrument or something like that? I can't recall exactly what, Mike, we had it. Did we have a charter? Is that what it was? We had some document that created this board and also got the funding from the state. I think it probably provides that once we're running, we're running. I don't know that we need to make any formal motion.
That is correct. I mean, and we do have an order that established the mental health court advisory board and the court. So, I mean, that in itself would document.
Yeah. So I don't think there's anything else procedurally we need to do.
That being the case, please allow me a little bit of privilege for just a minute or two to report to you that when I was feeling a little bit under the weather and had to take a little bit of time here at the house as opposed to coming into the city county building, I contacted Judge Sanchez and asked him to sub in for me at the Veterans Treatment Court and Recovery Court staffing and docket. And what is reported to me is that he handled that beautifully. It was very smooth, no issues or problems, and he enjoyed it, and it worked out really great. So I can tell you that Judge Sanchez will continue to be a very valuable asset, not only to our community, but to the specialized courts in Knox County. I'm looking forward to him having further involvement. The logistics of that it is yet to be determined. We'll probably work that out between us, I suppose, with your advice and counsel. Maybe we'll do it even on an alternate weeks basis, or maybe he'll take the veterans because he's a Marine. hoo-ha, you know, Semper Fi, all that stuff. I'm trying to learn all my Marine stuff. You were in the Army, right, Judge Sword?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but he did a beautiful job. I'm really excited about that. And, you know, I think that that bodes well for us in terms of our being able to get these institutions to outlive any one individual person. So that's good.
Yeah, he called me afterwards. He was so excited about it. So thank you for letting him participate in that. He is very, very enthusiastic, and I can't think of a better person than
Absolutely. And by the way, Eric and Sharm, if you want to get somebody elected to something, just send them to staffing at the recovery court. It seems to be working out for folks.
I learned that, Judge.
Is there a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I can't thank you guys enough. I really appreciate y'all so very much.
Thank Judge. Hope you feel better.
I'm working at it.